Hey, welcome to Village Church. We're so glad that you're joining in with us today. We are right in the middle of our series called Jesus in His Own Words, and I love this series. You know why? Because it hits the nail right in the head. We don't like to shy away. As Village Church, we don't like to shy away from the hard questions. You know, how do we actually live out Christianity in our day to day? You know, how do we live in this postmodern society, the secular age, with the truths of the scriptures, what Jesus says, and we're diving right into those hard truths today. We want to thank you, if you're someone who partners with us in this mission of Village Church advancing the gospel, whether your gift is small, whether it's large, no matter what it is, we're partnering together, advancing the gospel for the mission of transforming people more into Jesus' likeness. So we want to thank you for joining in with us. If you want to also give, you can at the link below. With all this, we're going to head into our series and hear from Pastor Victor.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good to be with you this morning. My name is Victor, and as you heard, we are in a series called Jesus in His Own Words. And why we're doing this, it's important because there's so many ideas, there's so many perspectives, interpretations on not only who Jesus is, but who we are in light of Him. What does Jesus actually expect of any one of us in this room or watching online? What is a disciple? And we're going to explore this text this morning. We're going to find out he actually draws some lines in the sand and draws some markers on what a disciple, what a follower of Jesus is. Because if we're honest and we're frank, not everyone who thinks they are a disciple is. Soren Kierkegaard, he makes a distinction between someone who is an admirer of Jesus and someone who actually is a follower of her. This is what he says. The admirer never makes any true sacrifices. He always plays it safe. In words, phrases, songs, he is exhaustible about how highly he praises Christ. Yet, he renounces nothing, will not reconstruct his life, and will not let his life express what he supposedly admires. A follower is or strives to be what he admires. An admirer, however, keeps himself personally detached. What happened recently, actually this summer, was my two older kids, who are like 5 and 7, actually got off their training wheels. It was a blast. So we took off the training wheels, we kind of did a couple of those, and they did a couple crashes, but they figured it out, and we're stoked. We had this moment where Jackson and Denver, they felt like they could go faster, they had more freedom. It was just a win. It was so much fun to watch. That was not my experience when I was younger, getting off my training wheels. So me and my family, we go to this place called Pender Island. It's just off the coast of Vancouver Island. We go up there once a year because my grandpa has a cottage there, so we go visit him. It's a low-key environment. All you can really do there is nap, do puzzles, and go on bike rides. That's all there really is to offer. And there's not a lot of construction there, so the roads are pretty rough. They don't have sidewalks. And so my dad thinks he'll have this moment with me where it's this bonding moment. We'll go for a bike ride together. Sounds fun. So I just got off my training wheels. I'm a little bit nervous about how to do it. And we go down the shoulder of the road. It's all like gravel, and the shoulder starts narrowing a bit. And so my dad is freaking out a little bit. He's like, okay, to the shoulder, Victor, stay to the shoulder, because he's worried I'm gonna actually go into traffic and get hit by a car. And so I'm getting nervous. I keep wanting to go into the road because on my left, the road is coated with giant blackberry bushes in this deep ditch. So I'm like, okay, it's either death or death. These are my options here. And so I'm going, and I don't know how to really bike ride, and it's gravel, the wrong little pebble, and sure enough, this beautiful bonding moment with my dad, I go over my handlebars into this massive blackberry bush, and it was rough. And I was stuck in that thing for a while. I was like 6 feet into this. And a lot of our lives, sometimes we get tangled up like that. Matthew 8:18, it says this: now when Jesus saw a crowd around him, he gave orders to go over to the other side. There's many times, we're going to see a lot here, where Jesus draws lines in the sand. You want to follow me? Eat my flesh and drink my blood. Whoa, hold up. Wait, no. This is too hard of a hearing. I don't know if I can do that. And they walk away. And Jesus isn't like, it's just like a metaphor. It's not really a metaphor. Sit down. Let me explain it to you. He lets him go. If you want to follow me, sell everything you have and give it to the poor. The man was like, I can't. And he walks away. Well, how about just like half? Sell half your stuff and like you can follow me. No, he lets him go. And just like here in this moment, Jesus calls those who want to follow him, not admirers, but those who actually want to follow him, to come onto the other side of the lake. For us to leave things behind, to move on from this place where true discipleship actually happens. And it's probably not rocket science for many of us in this room what Jesus is actually asking of us. There's things that have prolonged in your heart, whether it be as simple as like a sinful habit of pornography, lust, or gambling, or pride, or fits of rage with your family. It's like the things that Jesus, maybe just this last week, he's saying, hey, let's put that to rest, give that over to me. Or maybe it's something that's been prolonged for years that you've struggled to give to Jesus. For others, it's relationships. Estranged fathers, you're bitter at a boyfriend, things that have lingered in your heart for a long time. You can't heal, you can't forgive, you can't move on. But for many of us, it's these elusive things, these elusive attachments that many of us find ourselves in, attached to things, stuck, tangled up in things that have a hold on us, that aren't always clear to articulate, things in our lives where Jesus in this instant will draw some lines in the sand of those who want to follow him and can't because of these reasons. In our own heart, we find that we want to go far with Jesus, but it's this far and no further. It's this much and no more. It's nothing we would proclaim out loud, but the way we manage our wallet, our calendar, our time, our rhythms all proclaims that. I can only give this much to Jesus and not much more. And Jesus' words in this text draws some lines where these three would-be disciples can't go any further, that speaks so clearly to us in the 21st century suburban lifestyle of attachments that we struggle with. The first one is that the text continues, says, and a scribe came to him and said, teacher, I'll follow you wherever you go. So he's in, he's game. You want to go across the lake? I'm there. Let's do this. I want to be a disciple. And Jesus goes after the one thing that he thinks will prevent him from actually stepping into discipleship: comfort and security. Look how he pushes back on this disciple. And Jesus said to him, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man, Jesus, has nowhere to lay his head. It's not that Jesus was necessarily like homeless. He had places to stay, friends, family members, to stay with. It's that he had a very aggressive, loose relationship with possessions and things and assets in our life. They didn't weigh on his life like they do for us. They didn't dictate decisions for the future of what we can and can do like us. If I'm honest, there are things that have gripped my heart more than I'm comfortable to admit. When the interest rates have started to skyrocket more and more and more than we have seen in the last 8 to 20 years, when the Bank of Canada is doing things that seem sporadic and economists don't really have a gauge on, it feels out of nowhere and doesn't know where the future is going to be with prices, mortgages, all these things that come down to bills for you and I, my heart kind of gets stuck in these things. And I start to think on, well, what are these big ticket items? Just being in a home of what if the roof leaks? What if the foundation cracks? Or what if the furnace goes? And I start to think and mull on these things, and they carry more weight in my life than I want to admit. This place where I think I find actually quite a bit of comfort and security. And when I bring those things to Jesus, and I say, I expect him to bring peace and just to make those things go away in my thinking. And almost in a sense, he kind of pushes back and says, of course those things are going to go. Of course your furnace is going to break. Of course your water tank's going to leak. Of course your roof might leak. It's a house. And he assures me this Proverbs 18 idea is, I am a strong fortress. which you reside will never break, will never crumble, will never go away. It will be forever, for all of eternity, where you find comfort and security. And the idea of comfort and security, when I find all some pivots to him. And nothing's changed circumstantially, but this peace comes to me of knowing that where I find security is in him and not an asset, not a portfolio. And it's not so much that Jesus cares if you own a home or not, especially in this market, or if you have a big stock portfolio or certain things that retirement plans set out for you. No, some of those things are great and good, and God blesses us. We get that. But it's when life hits you hard, which it will, and we find ourselves thinking, look in the mirror, am I going to be okay? Are we going to make it? Do I have a future here? We don't get this sigh of relief thinking about our assets, our portfolio. We take this sigh of relief knowing, there is the King of the universe that promises to take care of me. That's where I put my trust. That's where a sense of security comes, because if it's in something else, right now, in this room or watching online, if it's in something else you place that, you have to protect it at all costs. That's where security is. You become an island into yourself. And when Jesus provokes you to mission and obedience and following him more and more and more, giving up certain things, it becomes difficult. Because you gotta protect. I want you and your family actually to go to Uganda, join Kawasha just for 2 months. I wanna expose your kids to the mission of Jesus across the world, that they grow a passion, the thing that I'm doing. I don't know if this is a good time for us to go. If I actually leave my house for 2 months, my home insurance might go void, and what if something happens? I want you to not take that job. I want you to take this one instead. Well, this job, I'll get approved for a detached home. I can have a yard for my kids. We've always dreamed and wanted that for our kids to engage with. I want you to actually sell that investment property, because there's something I want to do in this nonprofit organization, and I want you to partner with me in it. The market's not great right now, God. Actually, I had that thing set aside as a growing investment for our kids' college fund and for their weddings, and I just want to hold on to that. You become more and more rigid and immovable, and your private little island gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and you have to protect it at all costs. And what looks like good stewardship and being responsible with your assets and your finances is actually a cloak for fear and mistrust that God will actually take care of you in the future. That he demands everything. That you cross over to the lake, you cross into the unknown, and that's where true discipleship actually happens. Your future is not guaranteed. You can't have life in your own control. You have to give it over to him. And for everyone, this looks different. It's not necessarily about just everyone selling their houses and quitting their jobs. That's not the point. There's some things that you've taken off the table. If you actually examined your life, you've taken off the table where you find comfort and security. It's like, yeah, I trust God as a provider, but if he doesn't, I got $20K in the stock portfolio to take care of me. That everything would go on the table for him and say, Lord, it's all yours. You can speak into all things because ultimately you are my source of comfort and security. And then there's a second disciple where Jesus draws a line around the idea of convenience. The text continues, it says in verse 21, another disciple said to him, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. And Jesus said to him, follow me and leave the dead to bury their own dead. Wow, okay. So when I was younger in Sunday school, I actually thought, like with the felt boards and all that jazz, you see the characters up on the board. When I heard this story for the first time, I'm literally thinking his dad's like dead beside him on the ground, and there's like a 6-foot grave ready. He's just like, Jesus, can I roll him over and like just put some dirt on it and like, can you give me like 10 minutes? I just need like 10 minutes. And Jesus is like, let the dead bury the dead. Let's go. We're out of here. It's just like, wow, this guy's savage. Like, this is actually how discipleship looks like. That's not really what's happening. Most likely, scholars think that dad is still alive. There's just this firstborn expectation that it's a heavy 3 weeks laid out after the dad has died. The son is anticipating that. His dad might be near death. And in fact, usually a year after, there's almost a second funeral where the firstborn son takes the bones and put them in some more sacred space. And so what this person is actually saying to Jesus is, someday, after my father's died, which could have been years, I'll follow you. And Jesus' response is harsh and pointed because he knows if your life is driven by what's simple and what's convenient, you won't last 10 minutes being a follower of me. So let's just cut ties now. Some of you, especially young people, you have this weird relationship with the church. You're potentially born and raised in it. You've seen a lot of, you've seen good in it. Like you get the idea of community. You see your family is about it. Your parents, their marriage is still together. It seems like this Christian thing makes a lot of sense. It's morally good. You're about it. You get it. But you're kind of in your prime years of your life that you don't know if you want to lean in quite yet. You have this one-day mentality. Right now, I'm about to step into college, and these are such great years. I just want to have fun and kind of let loose, and I don't know if I want to give up this area of my life. Yeah, I'm in a relationship. Yeah, I know Jesus might think it's not healthy right now, but I'm having a lot of fun right now. I just want to enjoy life. Jesus' sexual ethics seems really rigid. It's like, I get it. It's like for older, more boring people, but for me, it's like, I'm in my college years. I got options here. I just want to, you know what I mean? And you think you have this mentality of one day, that you'll go around the circuit, enjoy whatever pleasure or thing in your life, relationship, and you'll kind of make a full circle where we have this posture of now I'm ready to follow Jesus. And that never happens. I've never experienced that where you get your fill of the world, because that's not how it ever works. That your appetites are fully quenched and you're ready to say, okay, now I'm ready to follow Jesus. No. As you inhale more and more, your appetite grows. Sin is never quenched. The appetite is never met. It wants more of you. It wants all of you. And Jesus now is calling all of us, whether young, old, delaying discipleship, and saying one day when it makes sense, when it's convenient, and saying now. The call is now. You can't be a disciple if I get to be in your life only when it's convenient for you. It won't work. He unapologetically wants all of you. And for those who call yourself a disciple of Jesus, he demands it. What C.S. Lewis says, Christ says, give me all. I don't want so much of your time and so much of your money and so much of your work. I want you. I have not come to torment your natural self, but to kill it. No half measures are any good. I don't want to cut off a branch here or there, a branch there. I want to have the whole tree down. Hand over your whole natural self, all the desires, which you think are innocent as well as the ones you know are wicked, the whole outfit. I will give you a new self instead. In fact, I'll give you myself. My own will shall become yours. That's what's on offer. Him. That Jesus actually supersedes all the best conveniences and comforts and securities this world has to offer. It's the BC life, right? The Okanagan Lake with the boat on the water. You got a charcuterie board laid out on the boat. It's like high life. You got the cabin life with the kids, and there's the fire going during the summer. It's all the stuff with the great movie that you have your craft beer cracked. It's like, this is BC living. We love leisure, right? But there's this mentality that all beautiful things, not wrong. We don't feel guilty about those things. We enjoy those things. But it's not where life is found. That if King David is saying he literally had the world at his fingertips, every pleasure, everything, every financial thing that he wanted, he could snap his fingers and have it. He exhausted all that the world had to offer him. At the end of his life in Psalms 84, he says, better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. Like he's either actually insane, he might just be crazy in his old years, or he's got something. He caught something that all of us, whether Christian, skeptic, you're tired of church, all of us hope to be true and struggle to believe that there is a God of the universe that's just that good. He's that good. When the cabin is full of mosquitoes, when the boat breaks down, when you feel bloated after the beer, the movie was a bust, there's this longing that is not satisfying, that longing, and that it be found in walking across the lake with Jesus, fully, not just half-hearted, not cutting out a couple branches here, everything, all of you. It's where comfort and security is found in him. And the last line that Jesus draws in the sand is in Luke 12. It's another disciple who wants to follow Jesus but can't give their life to him, can't go any further with Jesus. Jesus draws a line on not just your motivation towards your assets and your money and your finances and all those things that are around your world that provide comfort to us. It's not how just you relate to it, but what you actually do with it. Jesus has some things to say about how we manage our money. We have a weird relationship with money in church, don't we? Some of us, we subscribe to like the tithe thing, the 10%, which if you're actually gonna follow that, it's probably closer to like 23%, just saying. But whether we subscribe to that or not, we all agree as disciples and followers of Jesus that it involves generosity. It involves sometimes radical generosity, to give of our time, our effort, our finances to Jesus and his mission and to the church. It's all a part of it, but a lot of us have this weird, almost transactional relationship with it. I'll give 5, 10, 20% to the church, and this 80, 90% is for me. Maybe I'll sponsor a kid or child to go to camp, I'll support that event or pay a salary, sure. But the 80% is mine. And Jesus in this text has something to say, not just with this transactional thing of like you almost pay a membership fee or a tax or some relationship you have with the church. No, he has something to say to the entire lot, the 100% of what you receive and what you get. So much so that he almost provides a double warning. Read this text with me, Luke 12. Someone in the crowd said to him, this other disciple, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus replied, "Man, who's appointed me a judge or arbiter between you?" Then he said to him, "Watch out, be on guard," this double warning, "against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." He draws another line. He says, you want to be my disciple, you want to follow me, you can't take greed with you. They are incompatible. Like all of us in this room are aware of what greed is. It's not that hard to know that greed is when money becomes too much of a focal point in our life. It's too central to our affection, our desires, in the forefront of our thinking. It's too central to our lives. That's not the issue of defining it. It's when. When is it too central? When is it too much? When is thinking about it too much? Where is that line, and how do you know if you've crossed it? You know, when I first got married to Kristen, you get the fun, season of your marriage and those, that first year where you get to buy a couple things. People buy you things at your wedding. You get to do that list where you get to pick all the things, the furniture, all that jazz for your new home. And I got to be in charge of the TV, so I was really excited about that. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm gonna be modest. I'm gonna be self-controlled. I don't like when there's like a 70-inch TV and there's woofers and all these wires everywhere. It just it consumes the whole living room. It's super untasteful. It's like it ruins the whole vibe of the living room, right? And so I buy a modest 40-inch TV. And so I'm like, okay, it feels good. It feels right. It's not, glaring to anything. And then a year later, there's a rebate. And you can return your TV and you get your money back because there's something wrong with the TV. I'm like, okay, we'll return a TV to Best Buy. We got our money back. And it's like, oh, crazy. There's like a 48-inch TV in the same price. Why don't we just do that? So we get the 48-inch TV, still modest, still feels like right. About 3 years ago, so we had that for about 7 years. 3 years ago, we moved. And so when you move to a new place, you get the opportunity to sell some furniture pieces or sell, some things that maybe don't fit in your new space. So you try and shuffle things around and buy some new pieces. I bought a 65-inch TV. And it's huge. It's overbearing, and I love it. And then a couple weeks ago, my brother, he moved into town. So he's been in Ottawa for 10 years, and he moved to Vancouver, him and his family. And so he's buying some pieces for his house. And he's like, yo, man, I found the same TV as you, but it's a 75-inch, and it's the same price. Oh, okay. So I find myself on Amazon looking at projectors right now. And so wherever the line is, I don't know. I can't help you because I'm clearly struggling with it. But this is what Jan Johnson says in her research. She states, only 1/3 of American households that make more than $100,000 a year agree with this statement. I can afford to buy everything I really need. Which means 2/3 of the American households that make over $100K a year feel that they do not have enough money to buy all the things they really need. She says this means that the wealthiest people in the wealthiest country in history of the world believe they can't afford everything they really need. You know, there's enough storage unit spaces out there. There's 7 square feet of storage unit spaces for every American. You know those storage units that you throw all the stuff that you'll probably never use again? There's enough to sleep every American comfortably. In my pastoral experience, people have come to me and want to meet around obvious issues of like marital stuff or lust or doubt on apologetics and trying to figure out some theological things. What's their next step in their discipleship? I've never had someone come to me and said, I struggle with greed. And here's the thing. This is why Jesus provides the double warning. Because you always draw the line a little further from where you stand. And that's what makes it so dangerous. It's never your issue. Even though Jesus, again and again through the Gospels, attributes it to the primary lure that will derail your discipleship. Money. Something that we give very little attention to. So what do we do? How do we posture ourselves? What is responsible? Jesus graciously continues on the text by providing a parable. He said to them in the parable, saying, the land of a rich man produced plentifully. And he thought to himself, what shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops. And he said, I'll do this. I'll tear down these barns and build larger ones, and there I will store my grains and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods, laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the thing you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God. 5 times in verse 17 to 19, you see, I will do. He, as if he owns it all. My fruit, my barn, my goods, my soul. And here's where greed seeps in, is when you think everything you have is yours. This is what A.W. Tozer says. There is within the human heart a tough, fibrous root of fallen life, whose nature is to possess, always to possess. It covets things with a deep, fierce passion. The pronouns my and mine look innocent enough to print, but the constant and universal use is significant. They express the real nature of the old Adamic man better than 1,000 volumes of theology could. They are verbal symptoms of our deep disease. The roots of our hearts have grown down into things, and we dare not pull out the rootlets lest we die. Things have become necessary to us as a development never originally intended. God's gifts now take the place of God, and the whole course of nature is upset with the monstrous substitution. God's gifts, they ain't yours. Mine. It is never yours. None of it is yours. You know what God calls someone who proclaims mine to the air? A fool. Your whole life, everything about you, your next breath, the blood that pumps through your system, every one of your 32 million heartbeats that have happened this last year. Jesus so intimately involved in your life as if he's literally pumping every single heartbeat of his life that he's given you. And on borrowed breath, you proclaim, mine. Mine. It's all mine. Notice the distinction in the text. It says the land produced, not the man. Everything you have, every check that is written to you, every place that you own, every property, investment, it's not because you're a self-made man or woman. It's God's. It's because he's given it to you, and it's on loan. That's a different posture when we think about it. When you see everything you have, it orbits Jesus and his mission and his kingdom and what he's about and what he wants to do in and through you, as opposed to orbiting you and your desires and how you can get ahead and how you can please your life and make it easier. It's a very different posture where greed becomes impossible. How can my resources serve him instead of they can serve me? Because if we're honest, we are actually some pretty bad investments. What Will Rogers says, we spend money we don't have to buy things we don't need to impress people we don't like. That's how we think about money. And that's how we use it. We're not the best investments. Some of us, you've remortgaged your house to peel off a couple $1,000s to redo your kitchen so that it's more stylish, you can host people. In 10 years, it's gonna be out of date. You'll need to do it again. Some of you have bought that type of car so you can impress people at the office, knowing in 20 years it'll probably be in a junkyard. That custom home that you've invested, you've dreamed about for so long with your wife that you want to build on the lake and have finally the life you want will be a bunch of rubble in 50 years. All of it will eventually, all the things you've poured your time, your sweat, your blood, your tears to get will be rubble in the ground at the end. It's not wrong. It's not wrong to want nice things. There's definitely a place for that, a God-glorifying place for that. That's not really the issue. It's when these big things become the primary drivers of your life. Jesus says, you're in danger. Warning. Be on guard. When you say what one author says, you ask the question to yourself, I want money because. What did your heart say in that moment? What does your heart say about money and finances? And here's what happens when you start to orbit things around the life of Jesus and his mission. There's two guys at Harvard who had this goal of they wanted to retire by the time they're 40. So they made about $250,000 each in their jobs. They went to Harvard to take this class called God and Money. And that class reoriented everything for them. It flipped the whole thing in their head. They saw like, oh, a tithe is just something you throw at the church once in a while, and I have 90% to do whatever I want, to save and to store up things in barns. And the whole class flipped everything for them. So much so they're curious about like, okay, how do we actually use money? How do we think about money? That they go to there's a Christian club in Harvard, and there's about 300 alumni, people have graduated through that class, and they actually do an anonymous survey to those 300, just hoping maybe 3 people answer. Almost everyone answers the survey. And they ask like intense questions. What's your net worth? How do you spend your money? What does generosity look like you? And they got response after response and story after story, so much so they were so provoked by this that they actually said, can I phone you and hear more about this? And 40 of those 300 said, yes, I'd love to chat with you. They got phone interview after phone interview after phone interview, and it was fascinating what came out of this. And people were like, we just love the idea of giving. We give 50% of our salary. I just want to give more away. That is our heart. Some people were like, we had $100K used for a house rental. We decided to give it towards a church and to an orphanage. We're seeing that as such a fruitful endeavor. Some people were like, this guy could have retired after 3 months, but he extended it as a 30-year retirement plan because he wants to just give aggressively in his young years. Like one couple was so giddy. This older couple was just giddy talking about it. And the common thread these two guys found is almost this holy jealousy of like they're onto something that I've never experienced before. These guys are so joyful when they give. They give more and it makes them happier. It's weird in the Gospels when Jesus invites people to the table, he invites people, the disciples, to follow him. And when they say no, often it'll say they walked away bitter and angry. Jesus offers freedom, joy, and when we say no, we choose to hoard our money and to hoard our barns and stack things away, it leaves us bitter and miserable. You know what I'm most excited about? This building campaign that we have going on that we're thinking about in the future, and we want to get that rolling. All of us have talked about, really excited about, like, oh, it'd be so great to have this building where we can do ministry out of. There's things that we're planning where it's like, oh, it'd be cool to do youth conferences, different training things, bring global speakers, all this exciting stuff that we could do with this building. But you know the thing that excites me the most is in that season we say we're launching the building campaign and we call to you, put a pretty heavy demand to all of us, whether on staff, volunteer, you've been here for a couple of weeks, we put a call out to you of saying, let us invest in some of this. What Jesus will do in that moment, through that moment, that for some of you, he will break greed over your heart that you never knew was even there. For some of you, it'll be giving substantial things that I want to follow Jesus, and it's going to hurt sometimes. He's asking to give certain things, and you'll be surprised at how much joy it brings your life. And what excites me is not that we'll have a building, but we'll have a community that is transformed through it. that Jesus will do a deep work here amongst us. That's what excites me the most. And a life of comfort, a life of convenience, a life of financial security, it's so hard. It's so hard not to make that the primary drivers of our life. For me, for you, for everyone. And for you to have the willpower to just white knuckle. This isn't saying no to a cookie. This isn't saying yes to a diet. This is saying no to, you get 5,000 ads you're exposed to a day. There's a sermon being preached to you that this should be the priority of your life every day. And you don't stand a chance trying to have the willpower to resist making these the primary things of why we get up in the morning. You know, when I fell in that blackberry bush, my dad couldn't reach me. He had to jump into the bush to get me. He had to get all tangled up too. He had to get scratched, cut, and everything to detangle me from this bush and to actually pull me out. Jesus comes from a place of treasure in heaven, having everything worship to a humble little baby to be crucified on a cross with nothing hanging there so that he can pull you out. Whatever is tangled up in your life of saying, Jesus, I can't go any further with you. It's hard to trust you. It's hard to make this a priority. For those who are willing and saying, Jesus, I'm stuck. Can you help me? He meets you. It's not that he's just the one who draws lines in the sand. He meets you where you're at for those who need him, those who cry out to him, those who desire him, and say, I want to follow you across the lake into the unknown, into a future I don't guarantee, but it's better than whatever is on offer here in front of me. Jesus, I pray for those in this room that feel stuck. There's just a glooming fear of just like the reality of like the news, like we don't know where Canada's going, inflation, all this stuff. There's talks about recession. It's all these just like bad narratives that are leaking out there. I pray in the midst of it, we'll cut through that fog as there is a God who takes care of us. There is a God who detangles fear and greed from our hearts that so easily binds us up. Knowing that we don't invest in this world, but there is a strong tower that we can run to that is eternal. It's you. No matter what happens, the winds and the waves that move against us, that we would be rock solid in you. For those in this room who just feel like they've tightened things up, they're an island in themselves, and they haven't enjoyed really stepping into the unknown with you. They haven't enjoyed stepping into the mission of Jesus because they have to so eagerly protect what's theirs. Lord, would they get glimpses, would they get clues of how good it is to be with you in the mission of Jesus, to give, to be a person of radical generosity with our time, our efforts, our giving, our resources, that is where life is found, in the unknown with Jesus. That is true discipleship. Help us be disciples of Jesus. We pray this in your name. Amen.
When all I see is a mountain. You win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God, an almighty fortress. You go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadow. You win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God, an almighty fortress. You go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadow. You win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my head lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet. I sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Oh God, the battle belongs to you.